Have you ever felt lost, like your story was over before it even really began? Have you ever faced a future so uncertain that all you could do was cling to a tiny sliver of hope? If so, then you need to hear the story of Ruth. It's a story that begins in the shadows, in a place of deep loss and overwhelming grief, but it ends in the radiant light of redemption. It's a story that proves God can take our most broken pieces and build something beautiful. Our story starts with a woman named Naomi. A devastating famine has gripped her homeland, Bethlehem, forcing her and her family to seek refuge in the foreign land of Moab. They're running from hunger, hoping for a better life, but tragedy follows them. Naomi's husband dies, leaving her a widow in a strange land. Then, her two sons, who had married Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth, also die. Naomi is left alone, with no husband, no sons, just two daughters-in-law who share her grief. The bitterness in her heart is so profound that she tells people to stop calling her Naomi, which means pleasant, and to call her Mara, which means bitter. She feels like God has dealt harshly with her, and frankly, who could blame her? Her world has completely fallen apart. News eventually reaches Moab that the famine in Bethlehem is over. The Lord has provided for his people again. So, Naomi decides to go home. She turns to her two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, and with a heavy heart, she urges them to return to their own families. She blesses them, praying that God would show them the same kindness they've shown her. She has nothing left to offer them: no more sons to marry, no land, no future. It's a heart-wrenching moment. All three women weep together, their shared loss binding them in a final, sorrowful embrace. Orpah, after much hesitation, kisses Naomi goodbye and turns back toward her home, her family, and her gods. It's a logical choice, the sensible thing to do. But Ruth does something extraordinary. She clings to Naomi. She refuses to leave. Naomi tries to reason with her, pointing out that even Orpah has gone back. But Ruth's resolve is unshakable. And this is the moment where the story pivots. This is the moment a quiet, foreign widow makes a decision that will echo through all of eternity. Ruth looks at her grieving mother-in-law and speaks some of the most powerful words of loyalty ever recorded. She says, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." Think about what Ruth is doing here. She's not just choosing Naomi. She's choosing a new identity. She is walking away from everything she has ever known: her country, her culture, her family, her religion. She is stepping into a future that is completely unknown, with no promise of security, no guarantee of acceptance, and no safety net. All she has is her love for Naomi and a budding faith in Naomi's God. She is choosing faith over familiarity, loyalty over logic. Her courage isn't loud or flashy. It's a quiet, steady resolve to stay, to serve, and to trust. This single act of faithfulness, this radical choice, sets in motion a divine plan far greater than she could ever imagine. So, the two women, Naomi and Ruth, arrive in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. They have nothing. They are two widows, one old and bitter, the other young and foreign. In that culture, they were among the most vulnerable members of society. Their situation was desperate. But Ruth doesn't wait for a handout. She doesn't complain. She simply asks Naomi, "Let me go in the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." This was a provision made in the law for the poor: the right to glean, to gather what the harvesters left behind. It was hard, back-breaking work, reserved for the lowest of the low. But Ruth's character shines through her actions. She doesn't ask for much, just a chance to work. From sunrise to sunset, she follows the reapers, bending low to the ground, gathering stray stalks of barley one by one. Her humility is her shield. Her diligence is her testimony. She's not trying to get noticed or make a name for herself. She is simply doing the next right thing, providing for the only family she has left. And while she works, heaven is watching. God is at work in the ordinary, in the mundane, in the quiet faithfulness of a woman who expects nothing. And this is where a man named Boaz enters the story. As it happens, the field where Ruth is gleaning belongs to him. The Bible tells us he was a man of standing from Naomi's husband's clan. He comes out to his fields and immediately notices this new woman working so diligently. He doesn't just see a poor foreigner, he sees something more. He asks his foreman, "Who does that young woman belong to?" The foreman explains that she is the Moabite woman who came back with Naomi, and he mentions how she has worked tirelessly from morning till now without a break. Boaz is impressed. He approaches Ruth, but not with judgment or suspicion. He approaches her with kindness and protection. He tells her to stay in his fields, to stay close to his female workers, and he even instructs his men not to lay a hand on her. He tells her that when she's thirsty, she can go and drink from the water jars the men have filled. This was an incredible act of grace. He was offering her protection, provision, and a place of belonging. Ruth is overwhelmed by his kindness. She bows down with her face to the ground and asks him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me a foreigner?" She doesn't understand why this powerful, respected man would show such grace to someone like her, an outsider with no status. Boaz's answer reveals everything. He says, "I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz saw her character. He saw her loyalty, her sacrifice, her hard work, and her faith. He recognized that she had taken refuge under the wings of the God of Israel, and he became an agent of God's blessing to her. He didn't see her as a Moabite outcast. He saw her as a woman of noble character who was worthy of honor. In Boaz, we see a picture of a kinsman redeemer, a theme that runs through the entire Bible. He is a man who steps in to protect, provide for, and restore those who are vulnerable. That evening, Ruth goes home to Naomi with a huge amount of barley, far more than anyone could expect to glean in a single day. Naomi is shocked. She asks Ruth where she worked and who noticed her. When Ruth tells her it was in the field of a man named Boaz, a light goes on for Naomi. For the first time since her tragedy, hope begins to bloom in her heart. She exclaims, "The Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She then reveals that Boaz is one of their kinsman redeemers, one of the relatives who had the right and responsibility to redeem their family's land and legacy. The plan that unfolds next is a beautiful depiction of ancient customs and divine providence. Following Naomi's wise counsel, Ruth presents herself to Boaz, not in a manipulative way, but in a humble appeal for redemption. She asks him to spread the corner of his garment over her, a symbolic act of asking for protection and marriage. Boaz, moved by her loyalty first to Naomi, and now to her family's lineage, agrees to redeem her. He goes through the proper legal channels, and in a beautiful public ceremony, he takes Ruth as his wife. The story could end here, and it would be a wonderful love story. A story of how a destitute widow found a loving husband and a secure future. But the Book of Ruth is about so much more than a marriage. It's a story about God's sovereign hand weaving together the threads of ordinary lives to create an extraordinary tapestry. It's a story of divine positioning and redemptive history. When Ruth and Boaz have a son, they name him Obed. The women of Bethlehem celebrate with Naomi, saying, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age, for your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. The woman who was once called Mara, bitter, is now full. her life renewed by the love and loyalty of her daughter-in-law and the birth of her grandson. But the story has one final, stunning revelation. The book ends with a short genealogy. It says, Boaz was the father of Obed, Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. Let that sink in for a moment. Ruth, the Moabite, the foreigner, the woman with no status and no future, becomes the great-grandmother of King David, the greatest king in Israel's history. And the story doesn't even stop there. If you trace that lineage forward, you will find Ruth's name listed in the genealogy of Jesus Christ in the Gospel of Matthew. Ruth had no idea. When she chose to follow Naomi, she didn't know she was stepping into the lineage of kings. When she humbly gleaned in the fields, she didn't know her obedience was shaping the future of a nation. When she trusted in the God of Israel, she didn't know her name would be written into the greatest story ever told, the story of the Messiah. The Book of Ruth is a quiet story, but its truth is thunderous. It teaches us that our destiny is not always forged in grand, dramatic moments, but more often in the small, daily choices of faithfulness and obedience. It shows us that God sees the humble, He honors the loyal, He works behind the scenes, turning our loss into gain, our sorrow into joy, and our emptiness into fullness. He can take a nobody from nowhere and write them into the lineage of the King of Kings. Your story might feel small right now. You might feel overlooked, forgotten, or like you have nothing to offer. But remember Ruth, your quiet acts of faithfulness, your choices to love and serve when it's hard, your decision to trust God in the unknown, none of it is wasted. He is weaving it all into a story far bigger and more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. Thank you so much for watching. If this story encouraged you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content that explores the incredible depth of the Bible. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of Ruth E's story resonates with you the most? God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.